The rain had not stopped since dawn. The kind of relentless downpour that made the world feel quieter and heavier at the same time. As mourners gathered outside St. Augustine Memorial Chapel, umbrellas dotted the courtyard like dark flowers. Inside, the air smelled of wet clothes, fading perfume, and grief that people pretended to understand, but rarely did. And in the front row, sitting stiffly with his hands clasped together, was Daniel, a Bingerman, who had lost more than anyone in that entire building. Though no one seemed to care to his wife's family, Daniel was simply the quiet one, the man who never spoke unless spoken to, the man they barely respected, and openly mocked when they could get away with it. They never saw his late nights, the sacrifices, the battles he fought silently. They never understood how deeply he admired his father, the man being laid to rest. And today, as he sat in the chapel wearing a suit he had ironed 3 times to make sure it looked perfect, he was treated like he didn't belong there at all. His wife, Linda, sat beside him cold, distracted, more concerned about her makeup running than her husband's breaking heart. Her mother leaned toward her, whispering loudly enough for Daniel to hear, "Look at him. Can't even afford a proper funeral suit. God help us." A few chairs away, Linda's brother snickered, glancing at Daniel's shoes. Are those off-brand loafers? At his own father's funeral. Tragic. Daniel swallowed hard. He had promised himself he wouldn't react today. Today was supposed to be about honoring his father, Chief Kofi Obinger, man who spent a lifetime building a reputation for integrity, generosity, and wisdom. A man who had taught Daniel to remain steady even when the world shook around him. But grief has a way of tearing open old wounds. And each insult from his in-laws sliced a little deeper. As the pastor began the sermon, Daniel's mind drifted. He remembered waking up as a child to the smell of his father's strong morning coffee, the clink of metal measuring tapes, and the sound of workers greeting Chief Kofi with respect. His father had built one of the most trusted construction firms in the region, the kind of company that didn't rely on loud advertising, but on a name carved from honesty and hard work. Daniel had admired him more than any superhero, more than any world leader, and now he was gone. Yet none of that mattered to Linda's family. To them, Daniel was a man with no ambition, someone who chose to work quietly in his father's firm rather than chase big titles or fame. They saw humility as weakness, simplicity as shame. And today, with Daniel's heart already raw, their words hit harder than ever. After the service ended, the family moved to the reception hall. The room was warm and crowded, but somehow Daniel felt cold, isolated, almost invisible. Linda's aunt approached with a tight smile. "Daniel, my dear," she said, her tone dripping pity, "how are you holding up? Must be difficult, now that the main provider is gone." He nodded politely. "Thank you. We're managing." She leaned closer, voice dropping but still loud enough for 2 other family members to hear. "Your father was a great man. Shame he left you with so little. But God will provide." Left with so little. The words struck him like a slap. They assumed, because Daniel lived modestly, because he didn't show off, because he didn't flaunt wealth, that he had nothing. They assumed his father left him crumbs, maybe a rundown property or 2. They assumed he would become a burden to Linda. They assumed everything, and they were wrong, horribly wrong. But Daniel said nothing. His silence only fueled them more. By afternoon, the whispers turned sharper. Linda's brother chuckled with a cousin at the buffet table. "Imagine what the will reading will be like," he joked. "Maybe Daniel will inherit his father's old toolbox." Laughter followed. Daniel pretended not to hear. But every word dug into him. When the time finally came for the will to be read, everyone filed into the family meeting room at the Obinger Starter, large yet simple home, filled with memories, not luxury. The lawyer, a thin, composed man named Mr. Mensa, stood at the head of the table holding a sealed envelope. Daniel sat at the center. But even here, his wife's family crowded the seats around him like vultures waiting for scraps. Linda crossed her legs, flipping her hair dramatically. "I hope Daddy left something useful," she murmured. "You know, so we can upgrade a few things." Her mother nodded eagerly. "At least a house." Or the company shares? Something. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. They didn't care about his father. They didn't care about his grief. They cared about what they could gain. Mr. Mensah cleared his throat. Thank you all for being here during this difficult time. Chief Kofi Obing was a man of structure and clarity. His final wishes were very specific. Linda's family leaned forward, excitement bubbling underneath their fake solemn faces. Let us begin. The room fell silent. The air felt heavy, again just like the rain outside. Daniel sat up straighter, bracing himself. Whatever his father had prepared, he trusted it completely. But he had no idea that what was about to be revealed would change everything. And silence every single person who had mocked him. Today, including his wife, including her entire family, and including Daniel himself, Mr. Mensah broke the seal on the envelope slowly, almost ceremoniously. Every eye in the room locked onto his hands as he unfolded the papers. The room, earlier buzzing with whispers, now carried a kind of tense stillness. Even Linda stopped scrolling on her phone. My name is Chief Kofi Obing. The lawyer began reading, and if you are hearing this, then my journey in this world has ended. But before my final wishes are shared, I need to make something clear. I lived my life believing that true wealth is revealed not by how loudly a person speaks, but by what they do when no one applauds. A few of Linda's relatives exchanged confused glances. Daniel listened intently, his chest tightening. The lawyer continued. To my beloved son, Daniel, the world mistakes your gentleness for weakness. Do not let them. I have watched you care for this family more than you care for yourself. You carry my values more than anyone else could. A small gasp escaped one of Linda's aunts. Linda rolled her eyes. Here we go, she whispered under her breath. Her mother nudged her, whispering back, just wait. The property part is coming. Mr. Mensah cleared his throat and continued. Before I list how my estate shall be divided, I must also speak on something important. Respect, loyalty, character. These are the currencies I valued most. Anyone who disrespected my son disrespected me. Daniel froze. The whispers in the room stopped abruptly. The lawyer went on. I am aware of the comments, the mockery, and the treatment Daniel received especially from his wife's family. I may be gone, but I will not leave without setting things right. A sharp silence cut through the room. Linda's mother shifted uncomfortably. Her brother sat up, the arrogance draining from his posture. Linda herself straightened. Sensing something was wrong, very wrong. Mr. Mensah lifted another page. Now, concerning the distribution of my estate. Every soul in the room leaned forward. I, Chief Kofi Obing, hereby allocate all properties, commercial and industrial, to my son, Daniel Obing. There were immediate, audible gasps. Linda's uncle whispered loudly, all. Daniel blinked, stunned. All. But the lawyer wasn't finished. My construction company, Obing Structures, and all its assets, accounts, and subsidiaries also belong entirely to Daniel. One of Linda's cousins choked on her drink. A spoon clattered from someone's trembling hand. Linda's face drained of color, and for the first time that day, she was speechless. Yet there was more. I also leave Daniel full control of my investment portfolio, valued and diversified across local and international markets. The room erupted. Shock, stammering, disbelief. Linda's mother grabbed her chest. This must be a mistake, she muttered. Check again. Mr. Mensah stayed calm. There is no mistake, Madam. Daniel sat frozen, his throat tight, his hands trembling slightly. He had known his father built a strong legacy, yes, but this. The magnitude of it overwhelmed him. Meanwhile, Linda's brother leaned closer to his mother. He's getting everything, everything. Yes, she whispered, horrified. Everything? But the lawyer wasn't done. To my daughter, Linda. Every head snapped upward. She straightened, forcing a smile, preparing her face for something generous, but Mr. Mensah continued. You will receive nothing. The entire room gasped so loudly it echoed. Linda shot up to her feet. What? Nothing. What is the meaning of this? Her mother stood with her. This is insulting. She is his wife. His only daughter. She deserves. Mr. Mensah raised a hand. If you allow me to finish, you will understand. Linda sank back down. Trembling with anger, the lawyer read on. I have nothing against Linda, but the wealth I built was meant to support those who uplift my son, not those who belittle him. My son deserves peace. And because of that, any inheritance meant for Linda will instead remain under Daniel's name. He may choose what to do with it. Linda's mouth hung open. Tart, her brother muttered. This is unbelievable. But still there was more. To Linda's family, who often spoke ill of my son, mocked him at gatherings, and made him feel small under my own roof. You will receive nothing, not a property, not a vehicle, not a single cedi. Linda's mother gasped dramatically. This is wickedness. Wickedness. Daniel put a hand to his forehead. He wasn't sure whether to laugh, cry, or stand up and walk out of the room. Asterisk. Mr. Mensah continued. I did not build my empire to feed the ungrateful. I built it, hoping my son would one day rise above those who underestimated him. And so today, through this final will, I free him. Entirely. Linda's family sat, frozen, humiliated, defeated, shocked beyond measure. The lawyer closed the folder. These were Chief Obbing's wishes. There is nothing more to add. Silence stretched across the room. Only the rain spoke. Still hitting the window steadily, Daniel slowly looked around at the people who spent years mocking him, people who had expected to feast on his father's wealth and now sat with nothing but their own embarrassment. Linda was trembling with anger, her eyes sharp with disbelief. She turned to Daniel. You knew about this, didn't you? He shook his head gently. I had no idea, her mother snapped. Then tell him to change it. Tell him to give you what you deserve. Daniel stared at her calmly. For the first time in years, their insults didn't pierce him. For the first time, he wasn't the quiet, intimidated husband they thought he was. He was the heir of a legacy they couldn't touch. I'm not changing anything, he said softly. Linda's eyes widened. Daniel, after everything we've shared, he looked at her with a grief deeper than anger. You didn't share the pain. You didn't share the respect. You didn't share my father's values. The room was silent, and in that silence, something shifted. Daniel felt the weight of his father's words settling around him like armor. His days of being mocked were over. Completely over. When the lawyers finally left, and the house grew silent again, Amica sat alone on the veranda, staring at the moonlit compound. Her mind replayed every cruel word her family had thrown at her husband. Every moment they had belittled him, every time she had remained silent because she was too afraid to challenge them. But tonight, the truth had spoken louder than any of them ever had. She found Amica inside their room, folding his father's neatly pressed clothes into a small wooden trunk. His hands were gentle, careful, the same hands her family had once mocked for being too soft. She stood in the doorway, watching him for a long moment before finally stepping closer. Her voice trembled. He didn't look up. You should get some rest. She swallowed hard. I'm sorry. This time, he paused. His shoulders lifted with a deep breath before he set the folded shirt aside. What for? He asked quietly. For all the times my family insulted you. And I said nothing. For letting them treat you like you were less than them. For letting you carry the weight alone. His expression softened, but he said nothing. She took his hand gently. Your father was right. You honored him in every way that mattered. And today, he honored you back. He finally met her eyes, and for the first time since the funeral began, he let himself breathe. I didn't need the money, he whispered. I just needed them to respect him, and now, they don't have a choice. Amica nodded, wiping away tears that wouldn't stop. And I promise you, from today, they don't get to disrespect you ever again. Not while I'm alive. He gave her a small smile, tired, but real. Thank you. They sat together in silence, listening to the distant hum of the night. No arguments. No accusations. Just peace, the kind that only comes after truth finally wins its battle. The next morning, the family gathered again at the compound. But the air was different. softer, humbled. No one mocked Emeka. No one tried to take anything from him. They greeted him with lowered eyes, awkward smiles, forced politeness, not out of love, but out of the unmistakable weight of reality. Respect had been rewritten, and as Emeka stepped out into the sunlight, Amaka walked beside him, not behind him, not in front, but beside him, where she should have been, all along. Because sometimes, life teaches harsh lessons. Sometimes, people only learn after the truth exposes them. Sometimes, it takes a will to reveal someone's worth. But for Emeka, it didn't matter anymore. He had his father's honor, he had his peace, and for the first time in a long time, he had his wife truly standing with him. If you've ever faced disrespect, if you've ever been underestimated, let this story remind you that dignity cannot be stolen. It can only be revealed, and if you want more powerful African stories like this, stories of justice, healing and truth, then join us. Subscribe to Once in Africa, where every tale honors the heart of our people, and every story teaches a lesson worth remembering. Asterisk.